Welcome to NTD News. This evening, our top story, a directive for Attorney General Pam Bondi from President Trump. The president calling on the Justice Department to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's ties to a slew of prominent figures. And the White House announcing another trade deal and dropping tariffs on dozens of food items. Mariotsu standing by with the latest. The 2023 Georgia election case against President Trump will begin again. Arlene Richards tells us who the new prosecutor is. And a judge orders a review of hundreds of ICE detainees in Chicago for possible release. And Border Czar Tom Homan shares some new data on illegal immigrants who are considered national security threats. Jason Blair reports. As the government reopens, residents get their full SNAP benefits in more than a dozen states. And dedicated airport staff receive recognition, and some will even get bonuses. David Lamb brings us the update. Congress has until the end of January to pass funding for the government or face another shutdown. Will lawmakers work in a bipartisan fashion to avoid another funding lapse? Luis Martinez on Capitol Hill.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Kevin Hogan, in for Tiffany Meyer. President Trump is directing the Department of Justice to prove Jeffrey Epstein's involvement with a number of high-profile figures, including former President Bill Clinton. And the White House announces a trade deal with Switzerland and drops tariffs on food items amid a growing push for affordability. And we now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mariotsu, who's at the White House. Good evening, Mari. What's the latest from President Trump in the Epstein case?
Kevin, good evening. Yes, today President Trump is urging a probe. He's launching a probe asking the Department of Justice to look into Jeffrey Epstein's involvement with prominent Democrats, including former President Bill Clinton. In a Friday post, he accuses Democrats of using what he calls the, quote, Epstein hoax to deflect from failures like the recent government shutdown. He adds that he's directing the DOJ and the FBI to investigate Epstein's involvement with Bill Clinton, ex-Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, and J.P. Morgan Chase. President Trump's recent request is coming 2 days after House Democrats released a slew of new, previously unseen emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate as part of an ongoing investigation into Epstein's sex trafficking network. President Trump's name is mentioned in some of these emails, but they do not accuse the president of abuse. The White House is calling this email release the newest development in what it calls a manufactured hoax. Take a look.
They're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases.
Attorney General Pam Bondi, responding to President Trump's directive, is asking U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, to take the lead in the Epstein investigations. And the White House says it is no coincidence the emails were leaked the morning the government reopened after the longest shutdown in history.
This is another distraction campaign by the Democrat and the liberal media, and it's why I'm being asked questions about Epstein instead of the government reopening because of Republicans and President Trump.
As President Trump turns his mind to the midterms.
So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country.
Eyeing more domestic travel to tout his administration's cost-cutting efforts.
My administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again.
While the White House announces a new trade deal with Switzerland, with Swiss companies agreeing to invest $200 billion in the U.S. in exchange for a reduced 15% tariff rate.
Working with the Swiss, what we've done is we've identified the areas and the reasons why we have a big deficit with them in goods, and it really boils down to things like pharmaceuticals, gold.
While the administration continues to push for its economic agenda, Vice President J.D. Vance says it will take a while for the economy to rebound.
Well, some of it's already started, Sean, but some of it is going to take a long time because we inherited a disaster. We inherited the highest peacetime debt and deficits in the history of the United States of America. We inherited the worst inflation crisis in at least the last 40 years, and I think probably longer.
As Democrats ascribed their off-year election wins last week in New York, Virginia, and New Jersey to their messaging on affordability, President Trump, meanwhile, in a new interview published today, calls those just a hollow catchphrase and says that he's signing an executive order tonight to get rid of tariffs on a broad swath of grocery items, including beef, coffee, and tropical fruits. Kevin, back to you.
Great roundup from you. And yes, there's a lot to investigate in the Epstein case. Thanks for that update, Mari. And the 2023 Georgia racketeering indictment against President Trump and several others who challenged the 2020 election, that case has been taken over by a new prosecutor. Who is he? NTD's Arlene Richards has the details.
The man responsible for finding a new prosecutor to take on the sprawling racketeering case against President Trump and several other defendants has assigned himself to the job. Peter Skandalakis, the executive director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, announced on Friday that he's replacing Fani Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney who started the case and was later disqualified for an improper relationship with the lead prosecutor. The council is a statewide agency that supports district attorneys and manages assignments when elected prosecutors are disqualified. Judge Scott McAfee had tasked Skandalakis with finding a replacement by Friday, or he would allow the case to be dismissed. Skandalakis said he contacted several other prosecutors who declined to take on the job. In a written statement, he said the decision to assume responsibility for this matter was reached only after careful and deliberate consideration. He says the review process of more than 100 banker boxes of documents and an 8-terabyte data set has begun. But he acknowledged that his review is still ongoing. The case against Trump may remain on hold during his presidency, but other co-defendants are still subject to state prosecution. Georgia's case is the last criminal case still pending against Trump. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
A federal judge has ordered 13 ICE detainees in Chicago to be released by today, with hundreds more awaiting review. The ruling comes in response to a lawsuit challenging the arrests. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
A federal judge has ordered the release of 13 Chicago ICE detainees by Friday. The judge also ordered the Department of Homeland Security to decide whether 615 additional detainees pose a significant danger or flight risk after determining that these individuals did not have any final removal orders. According to the Chicago Tribune, as of now, 313 of them have been determined to be low risk, with at least 12 being a significant risk. Low-risk detainees will be eligible to be released on a $1,500 bond and GPS monitoring. In response to the ruling, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin says at every turn, activist judges, sanctuary politicians, and violent rioters have actively tried to prevent our law enforcement officers from arresting and removing the worst of the worst. Now an activist judge is putting the lives of Americans directly at risk by ordering 615 illegal aliens to be released into the community. White House border czar Tom Homan says that the data says more than half of the people in ICE detention have a criminal record.
It hovers around 64 to 70% of criminals.
However, Homan says that many of the illegal aliens that they have determined to be national security threats don't have a criminal record, and they make up a lot of the others arrested by ICE.
We arrested several thousand Iraqi nationals. Most of them don't have a criminal history. Why is that? Because they're laying low to do whatever they're going to do. A lot of them are gang members. A lot of gang members don't have criminal history. And like I said, a lot of them are fugitives. Those who had due process were ordered to move and went and win.
Tom Homan also commenting on the ongoing ICE protests in Chicago.
I was watching the videos before I came out here. When they put hands on a law enforcement officer, they're getting arrested, going to jail. You have a right to protest, but don't cross the line.
Jason Blair, NTD News.
Federal services are getting back to normal as the government reopens. Food stamp distributions have gone out, and Smithsonian museums are reopening their doors. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Services are returning to normal now that the federal government shutdown has ended. These states, including Hawaii, New York, and Massachusetts, sent out SNAP food stamp benefits in full to recipients.
As of this morning, I'm happy to report that those SNAP benefits have been fully funded. Even before SNAP was taken away, we had real issues with hunger in this state.
The government reopened after President Trump signed the funding bill on Wednesday, but many of the states paid in full before Trump signed the package. And air traffic controllers who were in high demand during the shutdown received 70% of their paychecks on Friday.
Listen, the air traffic controllers who didn't miss a day, they came for every scheduled shift that they had. They should get a bonus.
President Trump recently suggested bonuses for both air traffic controllers, and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has already announced $10,000 bonuses to TSA agents who worked, quote, above and beyond during the shutdown, not knowing whether they'd be paid. According to FlightAware, as of Friday afternoon, more than 600 U.S. flights were canceled and 2,000 delayed, nearly half the number of disruptions that occurred the day before. Several travelers in Arlington, Virginia, expressed cautious optimism once the government opened.
Today it's a 45-minute delay, but that's nothing compared to what a lot of people have been through. But we've had no problems.
Just making sure that my flights leave, depart, and lands on time. I don't get routed somewhere else that I don't want to go.
We were lucky that we hadn't been affected. So far, so good.
Major U.S. airlines urged the FAA to restore normal flight numbers as controllers get paid. And the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. has reopened. It's one of the first Smithsonian attractions to open its doors again. David Lamb, NTD News.
The FAA said today that it's downgrading the current 6% mandatory flight cuts to 3%. And now that the government shutdown is over, Congress has returned to regular order, but with a backlog of issues to tackle. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, breaks down for us the first items on the agenda for lawmakers.
We have been for maximum transparency of the Epstein files from the very beginning. What I was opposed to is the reckless disregard that was used in drafting the discharge petition. And we've been over this many times, but it was not drafted in such a way that it would adequately protect innocent victims.
The House of Representatives is set to vote on a bill that would force the Department of Justice to release all the files it has on the Jeffrey Epstein case. Republican leadership has rejected the bill as reckless.
And as soon as one or two break out from the White House pressure campaign and just say, to hell with the White House, this is the right thing to do, we call something like that a jailbreak, where I predict there will be over 100 Republicans.
Even if the bill passes the House of Representatives, there's little chance it would get 60 votes in the Senate. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are focused on reaching a solution for the ACA subsidies that are set to expire at the end of the year.
The Affordable Care Act tax credits are scheduled to lapse on December 31st. And so we have about 45 days to get this done. House Democrats have introduced legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for 3 years.
Republicans have rejected the idea of a clean extension of the health care subsidies, and Senate Democrats know it would have no chance of passing in the Senate.
I think people know that Democrats own Obamacare, and it's been a disaster. They promised you could keep your doctor. That didn't happen. They promised costs would go down. That didn't happen. Nobody's debating these things. It's just sort of they're trying to pin the tail on somebody else now, and American people are smart.
It's extraordinarily unlikely. It is, first of all, not attached to any must-pass legislation. The Republicans have all kinds of different ideas that they want to do on health care, so why are they going to sign on to our strategy for extending the tax credits?
Republicans plan on presenting a reconciliation bill solely focused on health care.
Reconciliation isn't perfect. We're not going to get any Democrats so far because, again, they're denying reality. They've just been papering over the failure of Obamacare, papering over the massive increase in subsidies, in premiums, by throwing subsidy dollars at us.
House and Senate Republicans are planning on passing the remaining 9 appropriation bills to fund government through fiscal year 2026 before the end of this year. If they fail, the odds of another government shutdown dramatically increases. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
The State Board of Education in Florida has approved new standards for teaching students about the history of communism. Here's what one state official said at a board meeting about the new curriculum.
Today, this board will take action on these standards that will provide students with a deeper understanding of how communist regimes have suppressed freedoms, abused power, and inflicted suffering across the world.
Students in public schools will be taught about the dangers and evils of communism. Florida's Commissioner of Education said with the resurgence of communist ideologies across the U.S. and the world, it is more important than ever for students to understand the failures and human suffering under communist regimes. The new standards are approved for middle and high school social studies classes. This move stems from legislation signed by Governor Ron DeSantis in 2024. The law mandates the instruction of the consequences of communism. A new curriculum will be implemented beginning in the new school year. And coming up, at least 8 Ukrainian civilians are reported dead, most of them in the capital city of Kyiv. Germany now wants to buy more U.S. weapons for Ukraine so it can defend itself. Arian Pastar has the details. And residents in the Gaza Strip say the Hamas terrorist group is reasserting its control over the territory. But a UN resolution could allow at least 20,000 international troops to help secure the territory. Jason Perry reports in a moment. Hi again. At least 8 Ukrainian civilians are reported dead today, most in the nation's capital. Russia launched massive attacks across the country with a focus on Kyiv. Germany now wants to buy more U.S. weapons for Ukraine to allow the country to defend itself. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar has more.
At least 6 civilians are reported dead in Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv, after heavy Russian attacks on Friday. Russia used 430 drones and 18 missiles in one of the biggest attacks on Kyiv since the start of the war. Ukraine says it responded with long-range strikes on Russia. A resident in Kyiv recounts the moment her apartment came under attack.
I didn't hear anything. I just realized that my hair was on fire. I started to put out my hair like this. Then I realized that I couldn't see anything.
Officials say that besides the 6 casualties in Kyiv, at least 34 people were injured, including 2 children and a pregnant woman. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko says Russia hit civilian targets on purpose.
They want to break people's will, spread depression, and make people surrender. This is the only possible explanation for the attack on a peaceful city.
2 more civilians died in the south of Ukraine in an attack on a different city. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky criticizing the attacks on his country.
Ukraine must do everything to ensure that no Russian strike goes unpunished. Our weapons, international sanctions, and political pressure on Russia are all working, and they will work even more.
And the United Nations weighing in as well, saying attacks on residential buildings violate international law.
They are unacceptable wherever they occur and must end immediately.
Germany now wants to purchase more weapons from the United States and give them to Ukraine.
These are systems that are only produced in the United States and which Ukraine urgently needs. Prominent examples are the Patriot systems and the missiles for them.
Berlin is planning to provide over $150 million for such purchases from the US. After Friday's deadly attacks, Russia says it remains open for dialogue. A Kremlin spokesperson says Moscow still approves of a summit with the United States in Budapest.
We remain ready to hold a second Russian-American summit in Budapest if it truly builds on the well-developed results of meeting in Alaska.
And Russia publishes this video showing North Korean troops being active in Russia's Kursk region. Moscow says the North Korean soldiers are being used to clear the area of landmines. The soldiers previously already supported Russia in defending the Kursk region against a Ukrainian incursion. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Residents in the Gaza Strip say the Hamas terrorist group is reasserting its control over the territory. But the United States is getting more support for a UN resolution that could allow at least 20,000 international troops to deploy to the Gaza Strip to help secure peace. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
Residents in the Gaza Strip were seen visiting the local markets on Friday. And some merchants have said that the Hamas terrorist group monitors everything that comes into the areas they control. and that Hamas has been charging fees on some of the goods the merchants sell, causing the prices to fluctuate.
Honestly, we came to shop today, and from what I see in the market, it's like a stock exchange, constantly changing. Every now and then in a moment, you find the price. You may go to the same person and return 10 minutes later to find the price has gone up.
A senior fellow at the Washington Institute think tank explained that the more time passes, the more Hamas secures its control.
They are creating facts on the ground that will complicate the work of the international community. And frankly, the longer that the international community waits, the more entrenched Hamas becomes.
However, the 20-point Gaza peace plan brokered by President Trump could soon see international boots on the ground in the Gaza Strip. On Friday, the United States and 8 Muslim-majority countries issued a joint statement on the UN Security Council resolution on Gaza, which offers a pathway to Palestinian statehood. And the joint statement expressed hope that the UN resolution on Gaza would soon be adopted. And if adopted, the president of Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim country, said they were prepared to deploy 20,000 troops to the Gaza Strip to help secure peace. Recent rainfall in the Gaza Strip has made life more difficult for residents who have been living in tents because their homes were destroyed.
How are we supposed to manage at night? The mats are all soaked, and the blankets, the mats, the bedding, and the floor, too. Where are we supposed to sleep? Where can we go?
Meanwhile, residents in Iran have been praying for rain as the country is facing its worst water crisis in decades.
There was a period of lack of rain before, but I don't remember it much. And this was the first rain prayer I prayed.
Iran's president said residents may have to evacuate to Iran if it doesn't rain by the end of November. However, the water crisis in Iran is not solely because of low rainfall. Water experts have told Iran's state-run media that decades of land mismanagement, including overbuilding of dams, illegal well drilling, and inefficient agricultural practices have depleted water reserves. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Stay with us. Obamacare premiums are about to rise as COVID-era tax subsidies are set to expire in 2 months. Lawmakers are weighing how to address the issue, and President Trump proposes Trumpcare. Melina Wisecup brings us the details after the break. Welcome back. Millions of Americans are facing higher health insurance premiums. In 2 months, COVID-era tax subsidies for Obamacare are set to expire. Lawmakers are weighing how to address the higher costs. President Trump is proposing Trumpcare. NTD's Melina Wisecup tells us more.
With a freshly reopened government, lawmakers have 2 months to find a path forward on health care. President Trump says he's committed to addressing the issue.
We want a healthcare system where we pay the money to the people instead of the insurance companies. And I tell you, we're going to be working on that very hard over the next short period of time.
COVID-era tax subsidies, which made Obamacare more affordable, will expire on January 1st.
I expect Republicans to be at the table in the next few weeks. I expect the White House to be at the table. And if they do choose not to come to the table, they can own the disastrous premium increases that will continue to rise.
Senators are expected to vote on an Obamacare extension in December. Bipartisan negotiations are underway.
We have senators, both Democrat and Republican, who are eager to get to work to address that crisis in a bipartisan way. These senators are not interested in political games. They're interested in finding real ways to address health care costs for American families.
While talks look more promising in the Senate, the House shows a stark contrast between the parties.
I'm not going to guarantee a vote on ACA unreformed COVID-era subsidies that is just a boondoggle to insurance companies and robs the taxpayer. We got a lot of work to do on that.
We'll introduce legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for 3 years to make sure that tens of millions of Americans don't experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles.
While some moderate Republicans are open to the extensions, many want to reform the program or replace Obamacare altogether.
The healthcare system broke under Obamacare. And as President Trump said, well, I'm not going to repeat his exact words for it, but it's not ideal. And we're going to have to work together to get this fixed because
President Trump is floating an idea he called Trumpcare in a Fox News interview earlier this week. It would be health accounts for people to pay for medical issues.
Everybody's going to be happy. They're going to feel like entrepreneurs. They're actually able to go out and negotiate their own health insurance. And they can use it only for that reason. That's the beauty, only for that purpose. And if we did that, that would be so exciting. Call it Trumpcare, call it whatever you want to call it. But
Republicans have not yet unveiled concrete legislation. CMS Administrator Mehmet Oz said, "We have lots of great ideas, but I don't want to show our cards." Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Affordability. It's the big buzzword right now. Is the country moving in the right direction on it? President Trump is making a big push for it. Our panel is going to help us navigate this complex and vital topic. Please welcome Paul Mueller, a senior research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research, and Michael Busler, an economist and public policy analyst, also a professor of finance at Stockton University. Thank you both for being here. Paul, let's start with you. Trump signed an order today to drop reciprocal tariffs on beef, coffee, tropical fruits, and other agricultural products across the board. The order said this is in part because of the, quote, current domestic demand for certain products and current domestic capacity to produce certain products. Your thoughts on this pivot and the impact tariffs have had on the economy so far?
Well, I think President Trump is recognizing that the tariffs have indeed raised costs for a lot of people, for a lot of products they consume every day. And what we see going on in the economy is we're seeing a divide where the economy is growing like crazy, gangbusters when it comes to energy and AI and big companies. The stock market is on a tear. But for most people who are going to Starbucks or going to the grocery store, they have not seen as much of the price declines that President Trump had promised because these tariffs have raised costs. It's a big tax increase. And I think President Trump is recognizing that he needs to pivot here to lower the grocery store costs for ordinary Americans. That's where a lot of, I think, the unrest in the economy and concern and pessimism is coming from.
Thanks, Paul. And Michael, please feel free to respond and share your thoughts on this as well.
So the overall effect of tariffs on the consumer price index has been virtually negligible. The inflation rate today is about the same as it was when President Trump came into office. Now, it is true some products have seen some increases in price, and some of those food products, and Trump is working to get those costs down. Overall, the inflation rate is likely to fall. We didn't get a CPI number for October because the government was shut down. But the November number is likely to show that the consumer price index is falling, mostly because energy, which accounts for about 7% of the CPI directly and almost 30% indirectly, energy prices are falling. I don't know if you bought gasoline lately. When I was driving home today, I saw gasoline for $2.85 a gallon. Oil is down to about $60 a barrel. And President Trump says, based on his drill, baby, drill policy and a commitment from OPEC to increase output, he expects oil prices to be down under $55 a barrel by the end of the year, and perhaps as low as $50. That'll translate into gasoline under $2.50 a gallon. And while there may be some inflationary pressures from some products because of the tariffs, it will be more than offset, the Trump administration feels, by declining energy prices. Trump feels that he's going to get the CPI down close to 2% by the end of this year. So the things that are a problem, he's going to try to work on specifically, but overall, the trend for the consumer price index is down.
Professor Busler, that's exactly right and very interesting. And I had a chance to look under the hood at that headline inflation number. And surprisingly, you don't really see those price increases where you would expect them. Imported goods and toys and clothes and stuff like that. A lot to talk about here. Paul, what's the big picture here? Has Trump made things more affordable within the 9 months he's been in office?
I think it's trending in the right direction. So I don't disagree with the point that was just made. So CPI is back under control. We're not seeing high levels of inflation that we saw under the Biden administration. However, the real question, that an economist would ask is, well, what's the alternative case, right? What would inflation have done without the tariffs? And again, I think even though there's this general trajectory that is going well, and many of Trump's policies are pro-growth, tariffs have always been the odd man out in terms of slowing growth. And I think energy prices going down benefit different people and different sectors of the economy differently. So again, as I mentioned, the AI sector is going gangbusters, and that's good, and we should be pro that. But they're one of the biggest consumers of energy. Now, energy prices do go to consumers more broadly, but I think, again, that President Trump is recognizing that there are a few particular pain points that people are feeling. Again, coffee, it's not necessarily a big part of the ordinary person's budget, but it's something that a lot of people purchase on a pretty regular basis. And so they feel the 20, 30, 50% increase in prices there. So again, I think what President Trump is navigating is the pro-growth policies that I think are keeping the economy in a generally healthy place, but also recognizing that there's some very specific pain points for certain groups of people or very obvious products that they use frequently where the price increases have been more apparent.
Such a good point, Paul. And Americans need relief now. And maybe some of President Trump's policies and the Republicans have had an impact. Maybe it takes a little time for those things to really set in. Now, Michael, has President Trump's signature big, beautiful bill helped to ease the economic burden on families?
Well, it does take a little bit of time. And of course, tax rates remain low, and that helps everyone. A couple of things that we really have to look at. Healthcare costs are ridiculously high, and something has to be done about that. The government was shut down because one side wanted the healthcare subsidies, which were passed in 2021 for 4 years and set to expire at the end of this year. One of those extended, and that turns out to be hundreds of billions a year. I think it was 1.5 trillion over a 10-year period. While everybody, or the Democrats at least, are saying that, look, we have to stop this. If we don't subsidize this, healthcare costs are going to go up for tens of millions of people. And that's true. On the other hand, what about the 100 millions of people who pay taxes and have to cover this? They're already covering roughly 80% of the Obamacare premiums, and now they're looking to cover more, which is a result of what was passed in 2021. We need to fix the whole healthcare system. Obamacare promised us lower premiums, did not deliver. Increases in the quality, doesn't appear to deliver there. And you'll be able to maintain your doctor-patient relationship. That has deteriorated. So we need to look not just at a short stopgap here to worry about premiums going up this year. We need to take a look at the whole system and try to get this healthcare system down. Insurance companies have made exorbitant profits as a result of this Obamacare. President Trump wants to try to change that and get consumers to have more control over their money. And when people have control over their money, they watch it a little more closely. If you have insurance and the doctor prescribes a medication, you figure, I don't care what it costs, the insurance company's going to pay for it. But if there's more direct involvement from consumers, they're going to question whether, do I really need all these medications? Are there other substitutes that could be just as beneficial and perhaps at a lower price? So healthcare need to look at. And the other thing that we need to look at is housing costs, and they're starting to take a look at that too.
I follow exactly what you're saying, Michael. And we've had a data lapse, of course, due to the shutdown, but prior to that, you actually see that services were bumping up that headline inflation number, whereas the goods, not quite as much. And we know energy and food are volatile, so there's all these variables. But Paul, to you, will Trump's proposed alternative to Obamacare, dubbed Trumpcare, be less expensive?
It'd be hard not to be less expensive. As we were just pointing out, what the Democrats don't want to talk about is, they talk about premiums rising for people, and they just ignore, why is it so expensive, right? And it's because it's a system that's been heavily subsidized for over a decade now. And you see this in other industries like higher education, where you have significant government subsidies that boost demand, and it really just drives up prices at the end. And so healthcare is a system that has seen just dramatic growth in spending. at the federal level, at the state level. There's a lack of incentives. There's a lack of transparency. The whole system is a mess. It's not easy to fix, but I'm guessing we can do better than we're doing now. We kind of need to do better than we're doing now because our current system is unsustainable, it's wasteful, and it just piles on to the significant national debt problems that we're still dealing with.
And Michael, it seems like you would like to respond to Paul. And also President Trump says that using Trumpcare, people can go out and negotiate their own insurance. I mean, how does that work? And will it bring down healthcare costs for the average American?
So we haven't seen the specifics of Trumpcare, so it's a little difficult to tell. Recall during Trump's first term, he actually had this problem fixed. He came up with a new system that would have reduced cost. The House of Representatives passed it. The Senate was very evenly split. John McCain was in the hospital. They brought him out of the hospital to vote on this. That would have been the 50th vote, rather, to take it over the top. And then he voted no. So we went right back to the drawing board and stayed with Obamacare. And since then, costs have continued to go up significantly. And people now are not able to afford the care that they really need. Look, the overall goal of the system is to get the highest quality health care at the most reasonable price and try to cover as much of the population as possible. Prior to Obamacare, about 90% of the population had health insurance. They were generally happy with it. They didn't like the cost of it, but they were generally happy with it. After Obamacare, only 91% of the population is covered by health insurance. So it didn't help that many people, and it ended up hurting a lot. We need to fix the whole system.
Fascinating conversation on this topic that literally affects everyone. Looks like we might just have a quick comment from you, Paul, and then we'll wrap.
I would just add briefly that to control costs, we really need to focus on consumers and decentralize cost savings. We don't need the government to be setting premiums or prices. If they can restructure the system so that consumers can see the prices and make their decisions, that will discipline costs. That is how we're going to fix the system in the end.
Noted. Paul Mueller and Michael Bussler, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Has President Trump adequately addressed the issue of affordability? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the Las Vegas Strip to hear from the people.
Do you think President Trump has been doing an adequate job in addressing the issue with cost of living?
For the resistance he has, what's his agenda, what he's trying to do with the Make America Great Again and Maha, yeah, he's done a pretty damn good job.
I think he's working on it, but I can't see any results yet.
He's doing too many things at once. He needs to finish one and then go to the next one.
In my opinion, yes. I mean, he's bringing down energy costs, which will bring down other costs. I'm in manufacturing, so I see the benefits of what he's doing. But I think it's going to take a little bit longer for the regular population to see that.
He's only has 9, 8 months, 10 months in. I'm fairly happy with his performance so far.
I say it's too early yet to tell. See what happens by next year, and I think we'll have a better idea.
There's so many things on the agenda, but this is what hits home for the Americans, is what's going out of our pockets.
The Trump administration has been saying that a lot of the economic pain that we're feeling right now are residual effects from the previous administration. Would you say you agree?
Yes.
Well, I agree 100%. It's getting better. It's going to take time to fix that mess.
There's no comment. I mean, half the country knows. 90 million people voted for Trump, It was a landslide. He's the man, and here we go. 3 more years, and then we'll take it from that.
Biden did the same thing. He blamed Trump for the first 3 years of his administration. But so now they're in, so they take responsibility.
Just one final question on tariffs. Are you willing to stick around for the effect to kick in?
Yeah. The country itself is going to benefit from the money we're taking in. There's pain that goes along with that. There's an adjustment period, but in the long run, it's the best move.
It's going to take a long time to get jobs back, manufacturing jobs especially, but you have to build factories and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some time.
I think Trump just used that as leverage against a lot of countries. I mean, because they weren't paying enough tariffs all along. I don't know, it's hard to tell what's going to happen with that.
Absolutely, we ain't got no choice. But he's right. The other countries been taking advantage of us for a long time. And I'm finally glad I get to see my lifetime of president stepping up to the plate and putting America first.
Coming up in baseball, Shohei Ohtani is unanimous again. The league's biggest star wins baseball's biggest award for a fourth time. Dave Martin joins us to discuss when we return. Good to have you back with us. For years, Shen Performing Arts has given the world a glimpse into what China looked like before communism, with world-class performances of classical Chinese dance and music. Now, for a limited time, viewers can take a closer look at the once nearly lost ancient dance techniques that Shen performers have revived in a special technique showcase premiering November 15th. Watch Shen Yun's Mid-Autumn Festival Technique Showcase tomorrow, November 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on Ganjing World. All right, and now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, plenty going on right now, but let's start in baseball as Shohei Ohtani won his 4th MVP award yesterday, putting him in rare company. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, very rare company. I mean, only Barry Bonds has won more MVPs. He had 7, amazingly. But Ohtani's 4 MVPs have all been unanimous. Nobody else has more than 1 unanimous MVP. And you can even say this is probably maybe the weakest of his 4 MVP years, yet he was still the best in the National League. Now remember, he won those first 2 MVPs as a member of the LA Angels in 2021 and 2023. But both times there, he was a full-time starting pitcher as well as a designated hitter. Now last year, he won exclusively as a designated hitter. He was the first ever to do so. He had that amazing 50-50 season, first ever to do that, 54 home runs, 59 stolen bases. This season, he still had 55 home runs. He only had 20 steals. He did pitch a little bit. It was actually probably the subpar almost season compared to the last 2. Still, it was good enough for a unanimous MVP. Next year, though, he projects to be back to being a starting pitcher as well as a full-time DH. So I would think he's an overwhelming choice to be MVP again. So Kevin, I would say he's starting to earn that $700 million contract. If anybody is worth $700 million, he probably is at this point.
Oh man, that is awesome. And Dave, fun fact, he's the first one in Dodgers franchise history to win multiple MVPs on the team.
You know, I would not have guessed that. That's pretty amazing.
I know, it really is awesome. But now, okay, NFL news. The league has filed a grievance against the Players Association asking the union to stop its annual report cards. It's according to documents obtained by ESPN. What's this all about?
Yeah, those report cards was this annual list of, players collectively grading each franchise on a number of different categories, as well as an overall grade. I mean, grades were A through F there. Now, these were released publicly, though, and were very interesting to look at, especially for us in media, because it gave you some insight into what it was like, behind the scenes. Like, one category was treatment of families, as in, does the team provide daycare during home games or even a family room, and whether they offer pregame sideline passes for family members, too. And there would be comments really on each of the 11 categories for all 32 teams based on player input. Now, other categories include food dining area, how good their team dietitian is, the condition of the locker rooms, the training room, the coaching staff, even the team owner. So for the teams that graded well, of course, it was very good publicity. Not so much for the teams that didn't. Now, just an FYI, the Miami Dolphins were #1 each of the last 2 years. But according to ESPN's report, the league says the report cards violate a clause in the collective bargaining agreement related to public criticism. Now, neither the NFL nor the Players Association had any comment. So mean, as a member of the media, though, I'm looking forward to seeing them again.
Well, yeah, that's really interesting report, Dave. I mean, you just think that touchdown pass, that sweet one, or the tackle from the linebacker, but actually, families, there's a lot more that goes into it.
I know. I never would have guessed that this was an issue on game day, that they needed a babysitter or something like that. But
yeah.
I guess so. If you have it, the players are more likely to do it. I don't know if this impacts free agency or not at all, but it's something anyway.
Super interesting. All right, elsewhere in the league, though, New York Jets coach Aaron Glenn seemed to be open to a quarterback change today after the team's loss last night.
Yeah, Glenn said, quote, "I'm evaluating everything, to be honest with you," when asked about the quarterback situation. Now, that is a much different tune than he's had in previous weeks when asked. Usually he sounds much more opposed to a change, almost even offended if it's a question. Now, his quarterback, Justin Fields, threw for just 116 yards last night. That's below the team's average of 140, which is the lowest in the NFL. Now, it's worth noting, though, that there were a few drops by his receivers. Plus, he was without number one receiver Garrett Wilson, who's on injured reserve with a knee sprain. But as for the Jets, I mean, even if they make a change now, they're 2-8 right now. They would have to win the rest of their games just to even have a chance at the playoffs. Now, as a Jets fan, Kevin, I would love to see that happen. But I'm definitely not betting on it.
Oh, I feel for you, Dave, as a Jets fan right now. All right, switching gears to college football. We have another full slate of games tomorrow. Which matchups stand out to you?
Yeah, there's a number of good ones here. I'm going to highlight 4 of them, though. First one, 9th-ranked Notre Dame at number 22 Pittsburgh. Now, the Irish, they're just 1-2 against ranked opponents this year, albeit those 2 losses were very close. Pitt, meanwhile, has won 5 straight games, and that game starts at noon Eastern time tomorrow. Then at 3:30 in the SEC, 11th-ranked Oklahoma is at number 4 Alabama. Now, the Sooners right now are just outside the projected playoff picture. A win here would certainly change that, though. Meanwhile, the Crimson Tide have won 8 straight games since that season opening loss to Florida State. Also at 3:30 in the Big Ten, number 21 Iowa is at number 17 USC. Both of these teams are a little bit outside the projected playoff picture. Trojans, though, are at least close to making the Big Ten title games. They're right now in 3rd place behind Indiana and Ohio State, but they would need at least one of those teams to actually lose, though. Now, then probably the best games at night. 7:30 is the big one. Number 10 Texas is at number 5 Georgia, a battle of top 10 teams. Texas definitely needs this one worse. Right now, they are the last team into the projected playoffs. Now, they do have wins over Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, but this would be their biggest yet if they won at Georgia. Good luck doing that, though. Georgia, very tough at home, so that'll be on at 7:30 Eastern time. So, a lot of good games tomorrow, Kevin.
Yeah, these are some tough guys, and hey, they got to get their stats up. That draft's coming.
For sure, the draft is coming. They got to get their stats up. That's right.
Dave, thanks for the update.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kevin Hogan. Have a good night.